Okay, so we'll start, guys. This is the fifth Sedra now, Haye Sorah, and before I better just give you the reference for the tape. It's in volume Tesvov of number 15 of Likutei Sikhs. And the Rebbe is going to answer or shine a light on a well-known question, which we'll come to in a minute. But before we go to that, I just thought I'd take you to the end of this sikha at the beginning, because the problem with this sikha is that, I mean, there are no problems with the sikha really, but the difficulty that beginners would have with this sikha is that it sounds as though it's racist, elitist, because we're going to be talking about Jews as opposed to non-Jews, and the obvious area where there's room for error in terms of a sophisticated understanding of this is that it's easy to just be a jingoist and say Jews are better and I'm better than you and I deserve more than you and because we're Jews. And that would be, I always think that when the Rebbe talks like this, it's a very sad conclusion that people who aren't really listening to what the Rebbe is saying, that's the conclusion that they draw. So let me give you a couple of obvious examples. You have a donkey and you have a pony. Now, if you say, if you ask the question, which is better, the donkey or the pony, it's a stupid question, because a donkey is a donkey and a pony is a pony. And if they mate, they're going to have a mule, which is neither a donkey nor a pony. And the mule, as everybody knows, is barren. So I just leave you with that in the background, that the Rebbe is going to be contrasting Jews with non-Jews, and is going to be focused on why it's so important for a Jew to understand who he is. And that level of understanding connotes responsibility rather than privilege. Although when the Rebbe speaks, he speaks in terms of privilege, that's because of the issue of responsibility. So, and it's very important to understand that, because the obvious conclusion that everybody has to come to is that I'm just wondering whether that TV upstairs is going to disturb us. I hope not. Okay. But the obvious conclusion that people are going to come to is if they learn the Rebbe's Torah properly, they're going to understand that if they understand why they are different as Jews to non-Jews, they will also understand that the only way a Jew can find fulfillment and a sense of purpose and a sense of nachas and satisfaction is to tune into what it is about himself, which is what he is. Because if the donkeys live in a paddock where there's only ponies, and the donkey wants to think that he's a pony, he's going to have a very miserable life because he's not a pony. That doesn't mean he's any worse than the pony. It doesn't mean he's any better than the pony. It means that to be a proper donkey, you've got to live a donkey's life. To be a proper pony, you've got to live a pony's life. And the reality is that Jews, as we will see, are different to non-Jews. Doesn't mean we're better, doesn't mean we're superior. We actually, the Rebbe says that we are spiritually superior, but that doesn't mean we're physically superior, intellectually superior, emotionally superior. So, but the fact is that we are different. And I think I said a few weeks ago, I repeated that Rabbi Feldman's father, Oliver Sholem, used to come to Sydney from time to time, and we became, he spent quite a lot of time with me, and I was very grateful for that. And there came a time when he had retired and he really didn't have enough to do, and Rabbi Feldman asked me would I take him for a drive once a week, fortnight, I can't remember what it was now. And we used to go for a drive for half an hour, 3/4 of an hour. Best time I ever spent. And he would just teach me Torah. He'd just talk to her, and once he spoke about this difference between Jews and non-Jews, and I made the mistake of asking him whether he thought Jews were superior to non-Jews, and he tried not to reply too scornfully, but it was scornful. And he asked me what was more important to me, my hand or my foot. And a hand is hand you use for one thing, and a foot you use for other things. If you can't use your feet, you can use your hand. You can walk on your hands with difficulty. If you can't paint with your hands, you can paint with your feet with difficulty. It's a lot of difficulty, but you can do it. But the reality is that one part of humanity is designed for one thing, and the other part on the body of humanity is designed for something else, and they're just not the same. And to make the mistake that if you want to be a sophisticated, egalitarian, intellectual person in the year 2021, in the 21st century, that requires you to make the assumption that everything is the same, like the woke people do, it is a mistake. We believe al pi Torah that is wrong. We're not the same. Men are not the same as women. Are they equal to women? Should they have the same opportunities as women? Should women be discriminated against? Should men be discriminated? No. But to say that they are the same is insanity. They're not the same. And we have to understand before we start this sikha that unapologetically a Jew has got to come to terms with the fact that even though he's a human being and shares many properties with other human beings, hands, feet, etc., we are simply not the same. And until you understand the differences between Jews and non-Jews, and until I do, you do, we do, you can't tune in to your own life's purpose. And if you can't tune into your own life's purpose, the nakas of fulfilling that purpose is going to escape you, unless you stumble on it by, in inverted commas, accident. But and some people do. I mean, if you're born into a family in Israel, in Bnei Brak, who's frum and where you've never known anything else, you've never met a non-Jew, you grow up in a Jewish culture as well as a Jewish set of surroundings, then it might be easier for you to flower and grow as a Jew than if you live in the diaspora amongst a culture of non-Jews. But the chances of reaching fulfillment, living as a non-Jew, are remote. And the best proof of that is that I'll give you an example that's as close to home as this. I've had a legal practice in Double Bay for 56 years. And in that time, I've acted for, I don't know how many thousand people, and many of them, most of them, a lot of them have been Jews, because I'm in Double Bay and it's a Jewish area. And I can tell you, with my hand on my heart, that people, you know, when you're 20 and you look forward to 80, you think it's a huge period of time. When you're 80 and you look back, the time's very quick, I don't need to tell you. But when I look back over those years and I think of the people that, what the dreams they chased, you know, whether it was money or power or influence or ego or whatever, and they all led nowhere. And those people that did that, I mean, everybody will tell you that they'd rather be rich and unhappy than poor and unhappy. I get it, that's right. But that isn't really the question. The question is to be happy, to be fulfilled, to have a life which you can describe as really being a rich life. And to do that, you can only do that if you understand that the reality is that you're different to non-Jews and your purpose in life is different to non-Jews. And until you tune into that purpose, which is your purpose, you have you don't have a chance of really being satisfied. So that is what this Sikha is unashamedly about. And it's unashamedly about it because it needs to be understood in the vein that I've tried to explain it, rather than to the idiot who says that Jews are better and better at football and better at this and better at that, and we're more intellectual and etc. etc. That is not the difference between Jews and non-Jews. The difference between Jews and non-Jews is that we're going to see in a minute. So, l'chaim. Okay, the name of this parsha is the first problem that the Rebbe deals with. The parsha is called CHAYEL. CHAYEL means the life of Sorah. Sorah is the first of the forefathers, the wife of Avraham Avinu, and this Sedra is called the life of Sorah. Now we know, al pi Torah, al pi Kabbalah, as well as Chassidus, that the name of a Sedra contains its spiritual content. It's a summary of the depths of the spiritual content of that Sedra. So you would question, or you would assume, that if the Sedra is called the life of Sorah, what would it be about? It'd be about the life of Sorah. What is the Sedra really about? Only about her death. There are basically three stories in this Sedra, which we'll come to in a minute, and each of those three stories highlight the death of Sorah. So the question has to be, how is it that the Sedra is called CHAYEL, the life of Sorah? And to understand that, you have to understand who Sorah was. And to understand who Sorah was, you have to understand what a Jew is and what a non-Jew is. Because it is because of that understanding that the penny will drop as to why this Sedra is called the life of Sorah, because it really, even though all the incidents are about her death, they're really about her life. That area, that influence that she has, which endures beyond the 127 years that she lives. So let's understand this. We believe there is a God. We believe that God creates the world, recreates it every microsecond, everything in the world, everything. And we understand, Al Pi Torah, and science has finally begun to agree with this, or with some areas of exception, that there are 4 states in creation. Doimim, Tzameach, Chai, Medaberim. So Doimim means inert matter, stones, water, salt. Then there is growing things, Tzameach, which means vegetation, grass, fruit, vegetables, trees. Then there is Chai, which means animals, and that is the whole range of the animal kingdom, from fish to birds to creatures that walk on the ground to creatures that swarm. All of that life, all of that state is called Chai, and it's the 3rd level. And finally, we have Medaberim, Medaber, those that can speak, and those that can speak are humanity. And we learn, for those who experience that, they'll be tired. It's tiresome to keep hearing this over and over again, but we learn that although there is rampant evolution within each of those 4 categories, there is 0 crossover. There's 0 crossover from salt into a tree, 0 crossover from a tree into a monkey, and 0 crossover from a monkey into a human being. Those 4 states are absolutely pristine and separate. Now, within the category of humanity, we learn that Jews have an extra level to their nefesh, to their soul. There's everything in creation, even inert matter, has a soul, has a nefesh, has a life force. It's more obvious the higher up the ladder you go, but everything has a soul. A tree has a soul, and a monkey has a soul, and a human being has a soul. But Jews have an extra level to their nefesh, to their soul, called a neshama. And the neshama is a helik Eloika mimal, a part of God himself. Now that sounds like, yay, we're Jews, we're superior because we got a part of God himself. And on one view, that's true. On the other view is, what are you going to do about that? If you've got a part of God himself in you, what sort of a life are you living? And what is the responsibility that comes with that? Now, we spoke about this a few weeks ago, and it's a tough subject, and I won't spend much time on it, but we have this amazing set of midrashim when Moshe Rabbeinu, you're all familiar with it, that he comes to the snare, the bush, and the bush is burning, and yet it's not consumed. And Moshe sees the bush. Hashem appears in this bush to Moshe, and Moshe runs away. And the Midrash asks why he runs away, and it answers that God explains to Moshe that the bush is Am Yisrael, and the bush is going to be on fire from the time he saw it until the time of the coming of Mashiach, but it will never be extinguished. Why will it be on fire? Because it's got to come to terms with the fact that it has a neshama and therefore has further responsibilities, and to the extent that it's derelict in those responsibilities, it's going to be burned. And our history, unfortunately, reads like a river of blood and pain. We've been, I don't need to tell you, we've been pogromed and burned at the stake and crusaded against and whatever it is. And the issue is, and one of the things that the Rebbe has pointed out in other sikhs, not necessarily in other fabringas, not necessarily here, The more Jews in history tried to ape their host nation and pretend to be their host nation, inhabitants of their host nation and the same as their host nation, the more they persecuted. Jews are respected for being Jews. When Donald Trump goes to the oil, he goes to the oil because he's going to see a Jew. When the current mayor of New York, I've forgotten his name at the moment, who's black, goes to the oil regularly. He goes to the oil regularly because he's going to he's seeking the influence of a Jew. Now, that doesn't mean that the Jew's superior. It means that the Jew has a different function, and they are seeking that function. And when you and I live a life which ignores those functions, they're dead ends. The money doesn't work, the pleasures don't work, the power doesn't work, it doesn't work. I can tell you I've acted for so many Jews who've stood at the side of their future graves at Rookwood, and they're rich and they're powerful and they have no knackers from their children, or they have no health, or they have no this, or they have no, and their brochas are very sparse. And Nebuch, they don't understand that the way to access those brochas is by being a Jew, keeping Shulchan Aruch. So l'chaim. Okay. So what is? Let's. What's the different job that a hand has to a foot, that a Jew has to a non-Jew? It's really not difficult to understand. We have been given the job at Mount Sinai of being an Am Segula, the chosen nation, to do a particular job. We're not the chosen nation because we're better looking or smarter or any of those properties. We are the chosen nation to do a job. What's the job? To infuse physicality with godliness. That's the job. That's our job. How do we do that job? We do it by learning Torah and doing mitzvahs. We live a life where we are focused on Ratzon Hashem, on doing Hashem's will. Our perspective is to live a life following God's directions to us of how to live as Jews. And if we do that, the more we do that, the more the Torah promises us, if you walk in my ways and do then I'll give you rain in the season. That's very, very misunderstood. In the Shema it says, you do what I say and you'll be fed and you'll get rain in the proper season and all the rest of it. And people immediately assume this means Gashmias. It doesn't mean Gashmias. It means satisfaction. It means nachas. It means having a life which is wonderful to live. To get up in the morning, not to spend the day anxious and dodging bullets, but to spend the day eagerly looking to elevate yourself, your family, and the world. Rabbi Groner, Shalom, one of the Rebbe's secretaries, once came here to Fabring, and I picked him up from the airport and brought him here for dinner, and because the Fabringen didn't start till 8:30, and he picked him up about 5. So I sat next to him at this table, and he talked for 2 hours. Wonderful, best 2 hours I ever spent. Or another set of good times that I spent. And he told me that one day, after the Rebbetzin died, I don't know if you know, but after the Rebbetzin died, the Rebbe didn't go back to President Street anymore. He used to sleep in his office. There was this sort of little couch, like a masseur's couch. And the Rebbe used to sleep on that, He used to sleep 2-3 hours a night. More like 2 than 3. And one day Rabbi Groner told me that he knocked and he came in, and the Rebbe was sitting with his feet a few inches above the floor, and Rabbi Groner was alarmed, and he asked whether the Rebbe was all right. And the Rebbe nodded that he was all right. And the Rebbe then very uncharacteristically volunteered that he listened to this, he never put his feet on the ground when he got up in the morning after Moedei Ani, etc., without planning how today was going to be better than yesterday. Now, at the time, he was 86, 87, never put his feet on the ground until he worked out how today was going to be better than yesterday. That's a life. Not anxiously running around dodging bullets that you imagine are coming at you. And they are coming at you if you're not living like a Jew. That's the reality. You know, we had a massacre in Israel 100 years ago called Mayalot. I don't know if you know about it, but the Arabs came in and killed a lot of children in a kindergarten. And the Rebbe sent two shluchim to check the mezuzahs of the kindergarten. And of course, they were posel. And there was an outrage in the Frum community, in the Frum Jewish community. What was the outrage? That the Rebbe was blaming the mezuzahs for the murder of these children. So people just didn't understand what the Rebbe was explaining. What the Rebbe was explaining was there are certain mitzvahs which carry protection, like a helmet. The Rebbe used the example, he explained this in the Fabringen, like a man if a soldier wears a helmet, he's got a better chance of not being killed if he gets shot in the head than if he is not wearing a helmet. Does that mean that it's the fault of the not wearing a helmet that he died? It's not its fault. But if he has the helmet, he has protection. Mezuzahs are a protection on a Jewish house. If a Jewish house has mezuzahs, it has a higher level of protection than if it doesn't. So what happens in Chabad? Somebody gets sick in the family or gets robbed or whatever it is, immediately everyone runs to check their mezuzahs, because that's what we learned from the Rebbe. If you live a Jewish life, what does that mean, live a Jewish life? That you are focused on living according to Shulchan Aruch and keeping the mitzvahs, then the keeping of the mitzvahs offers you a level of protection that Jews who don't live that kind of life don't have. And therefore they don't get the protection. And therefore the bush is burning and it's hot. And they're in pain, Nebuch. Never being consumed, but being in pain. So the Rebbe then continues in the Sikha and he says, so what about this Chaye sorrow, the life of sorrow, when it's really about her death? So let me explain the structure of the Sedra to you quickly. It's in 3 sections. In the first section is the story of Sarah dying, Avram Avinu, her husband, wanting to bury her. He goes to a place in Hebron and wants to buy a cave and buy that cave for the burial of his wife. You can't tell me that doesn't sound like it's about her death, not about her life. But the question is, why does he want to buy the cave? He wants to buy the cave because that cave has 4 couples buried in it. Adam and Eve, until then only Adam and Eve. Then it became the burial place of Avram and Sarah. Then it became the burial place of Yaakov and of Yitzhak and Rivka, and then finally of Yaakov and Leah.
And Esau.
Huh?
And Esau. Zechet.
No, yeah, but no. The burial place of those four couples. What is the Torah teaching us between the lines? And don't forget, when we learn Hasidus, we're not learning the superficial level. The superficial level is available in different shiurim. We're learning the secrets of what's going on. The Pneumius Torah, the inside of the Torah. So what we're learning is that Avraham Avinu is recognizing after her death, and I'll explain that in a moment, because during her lifetime he didn't necessarily recognize this. After her death, he recognizes that there has to be a separate pathway for Am Yisrael. And therefore the pathway, the burial place of Adam and Eve, which logically could turn into a burial place for all humanity, because Adam and Eve were the first humans. Avraham Avinu is saying, I get it now from Rivka, and we'll go through why he gets it from Rivka in a minute, but I get it. It has to be separate for Jews. Why does it have to be separate for Jews? Because Jews have to have a separate form of life. Is it for jingoistic reasons? Is it because we think we're superior? Is it because we think we're smarter, better looking? None of those reasons. It is because we have a different job with a different set of responsibilities. And if you don't understand that different job and that different sets of responsibilities, you can't have a life. Not a full life. You can have a life because like the donkey and the pony, they're both animals and they both can be in the same farmyard. They're not the same. One's not better than the other, but they're different. And if the donkey wants to be a pony, he's not going to be happy. And if the pony wants to be a donkey, he's not going to be happy. And if they mate, then the mule is barren. Why? Because they are fundamentally different. And where do we see this? When in last week's Sedra, Avraham Avinu, Sarah comes to Avraham and says, Yishmael's no good. Your son Yishmael. Now, let's understand what's going on. Avraham Avinu is married to Rivka. He has, to Sarah, sorry. He has a child by her maidservant, Hagar, and the child is Ishmael, and that was his firstborn child. There is a constant argument in their household between Ishmael and Yitzhak. He's 13 years older than Yitzhak. And the argument is about what? It's about inheritance. Now the Bechoya, the eldest child in Jewish law, gets a double portion. So if there were only those two sons, one by Sarah and one by Hagar, and Yishmael is older, he is to get 2/3 and Yitzhak is to get 1/3. And that was his argument with Yitzhak. And when Sarah heard that, she said, you don't get it. You have no inheritance from us, from me. I'm going to explain me in a minute. So she said, we've got to throw him out. Got to throw him out of the house. Avram says, throw him out. He's my son. What do you want me? You want me to throw out my son? Is that a fair request? She said, they cannot grow up together and be confused as being brothers such that the elder brother gets an inheritance, because we are talking about we're talking about a pony and a donkey, or a donkey and a pony, or a hand and a foot. They're not the same. They can't grow up in the same house, and he has to go. And Avram's very upset about this because it's his son, his eldest son. And it isn't until God comes and tells him, listen to Sarah, that he does. Because until then, let's understand, who throws out a child? Okay, you tell me he's a bad kid. And the kid was bad for a while, right? He did tshuva later on, you'll see, if you get time to go through it. But if he was behaving badly, you don't throw out a child because he's behaving badly. You work with the child. You spend more time with the child. You do whatever you need to do. Give him more love. Give him more.
Clip.
That doesn't hurt. I mean, in modern theory it does, but we know it doesn't. But but when God tells him to do it, he does. He throws him out of the house. But when Avram Avinu learns that, by the time Sarah dies after the 127 years that she lives, he has now learned that lesson well enough to go and buy this cave that Adam and Eve are buried in for the lineage of Am Yisrael, to make the statement to Am Yisrael for posterity that we have to understand that we have a different pathway. Now, by the way, and he pays a fortune for the cave, and the cave really belonged to him anyway because Hashem said that he could have that land in a previous thing. There's a whole the whole legal argument of why he didn't need to do it, and still he did it, and he overpaid, and he overpaid deliberately so that there could never be a problem about it in the future. And in the future, the Arabs couldn't come and claim that they should have a two-state solution to the cave. The second story, which occupies most of the Sidra, is that it comes time for Yitzhak to be married, and Avram takes his servant. He's got a servant called Eliezer. Now you should know who Eliezer is. And it's important to know who Eliezer is in the context of what we're talking about. Eliezer is a righteous Gentile. He's a tzaddik. He's a wonderful human being. He is Avraham Avinu's right-hand man, his servant, his enabler in all Avraham Avinu's holy work. Eliezer was the enabler for all of that. He organized it. He organized the rallies and the TV appearances and everything that he did to convince the world that there was one God and that each human life is precious and that you can't have human sacrifices, etc., etc. All of that Eliezer enabled. So now Avraham Avinu says, I need you to go and find my wife, go and find a wife for my son, but you have to go to my family. You have to go to my family, and there you'll see that there's a girl, Rivka, and you'll try and get her to marry. So Eliezer asks a very simple question. So what if she doesn't want to come? What if she doesn't want to come? And he says, by the way, I've got a 20-year-old, and she's beautiful. And she's my daughter. We could be mukatonim. What about her if she doesn't want to come? And Avraham Avinu says, it is out of the question. It is absolutely out of the question. Bring Rivka back. Bring me someone from our family. And then the whole story goes on about how Hashem brings miracles because he's such a good man, this Eliezer. He deserves miracles, and he gets them. And then, of course, he brings her back. So what does this show? When he brings her back, Yitzhak meets her and takes her to his mother's tent. And this tent of Sarah had miracles. One miracle was, as you probably know, that she used to light Shabbos candles, and unlike our Shabbos candles that burn for 40 minutes or whatever it is, or an hour and a half or whatever it is, hers burned until the following Friday. When she died, they stopped. That obviously stopped. There's also miracles with the challah, and various other men. Now, when Yitzhak brought Rivka into his mother's tent, those miracles started again. So he saw that he had a replacement for his mother. That's how the Torah describes it. What does that mean? That's another accent on the fact that we're talking about death, the death of Sarah, not the life of Sarah. Because just as in the first one, the first example, we were talking about the cave of Machpelah, the burial place, and that was because she died. This is now explaining that Yitzhak is now able to move on because he's replaced his mother with his wife. And she's as worthy a woman as his mother was. Again emphasizing the death. Again making the question of why is it called higher sorrow more strong. Finally, the third story at the end of the thing is that Sarah dies. Avram remarries. He remarries a woman whose name is different, but was really Hagar. Again, he remarries Hagar. And he has another 6 children with Hagar. And those 6 children, has he learned his lesson about the inheritance or not? So the answer is, he certainly has. He says, you can't inherit. Yitzhak is inheriting everything. I'll send you money. He sends some presents and some money, and I'm your father, but the inheritance of Am Yisrael is from Yitzhak. And this is explained in Chassidus, that Avram Avinu understood that when Hashem, and what Avram, there are no tricks and false leads in Torah. Torah is emes, it's truth. So when it's Avram, Av means father, Ram means a multitude. His name was Avram before it was changed to Avraham, and that's the father of multitudes. What does that mean, father of multitudes? Jew and non-Jew alike. He was the father of both. And he's the father of Arabs, he's the father of Ishmael, and he's the father of Yitzhak. But there is no comparison. They are not the same. It's not the same game. One is a pony and one is a donkey. And the donkey's job is to be a donkey, and the pony's job is to be a pony. And when he insists that the inheritance be as Rivka wanted it, namely that Am Yisrael had to be through Yitzhak, that is actually Ishmael, to do him credit, does tshuva, by the way. And how do we know that he does tshuva? Because at the end of this Sedra, you'll see if you read the words carefully that it says that the 2 boys, men, came to bury their father. If you look at the words, Yitzhak is mentioned first, and then Ishmael. Now, why would the Torah mention Yitzhak first and then Ishmael? Ishmael was 13 years older. He was senior. The logical thing would be to mention him first. But the reason is to give him the credit that he did, do tshuva, and in doing that tshuva, he recognized that Yitzhak had to be the father of Am Yisrael, and that's why he he did tshuva for that. But again, this is accentuating this. None of this can happen unless Sarah dies. So again, we have the issue that of the 3 stories, really they're all about a death.
Well, didn't Sarah die when she had the Matakeda?
Yeah.
So how can she make Yitzhak after with
What do you mean make? Sarah you're talking about. That Sarah died? Yeah, but Yitzhak was alive when Sarah died.
I know, but...
Let's leave it till afterwards. We'll turn the tape off and we'll deal with it.
German.
So, in order to understand what we've been saying and why this is really about her life rather than her death, the Rebbe says you have to understand who Sarah was. Unlike Avram, who's the father of nations, Sarah only had one child. She only ever had one child, and that one child was miraculous, and that one child's destiny was destined to be miraculous, and therefore it had to be kept pristine. And these are very uncomfortable concepts for 21st century intelligent, sophisticated people, because when people like beasts like Hitler Yamach talked about pure Aryan blood, it sounds like we're talking about the same nonsense. We're not talking about the same nonsense. We're talking about the fact that a Jew has a different level to his nefesh, called a neshama, which is a helik olika mimal, which is a part of God himself, and that entails certain responsibilities. Those responsibilities are to learn Torah and do mitzvahs and elevate the world, bring Ruchnius into Gashmius and Gashmius into Ruchnius. Spirituality into physicality, physicality into spirituality. And she was unique in the sense that she was the mother of only one direction. And she insisted on keeping that direction pristine. And the reason she did that is because we have to understand that our fortunes lie as being Jews. And the more in tune with those fortunes we are, the more opportunity you have to grow and flower and reach fulfillment. Now, so the 3 episodes really do mean the life of Sarah, explains the Rebbe, like this. The first one of burying her in the cave, sure, you can only bury somebody when they're dead, but the fact is that that was the gateway to Avram Avinu making clear, to understanding that notwithstanding that he was the father of nations, the lineage of Judaism had to be through Yitzhak and stay through Yitzhak. And that's why we have complex halachas about mi Yehudi, about who is a Jew. A Jew is a person born from a female Jewish neshama, or a person who converts in terms of Shulchan Aruch. And when you convert in terms of Shulchan Aruch, you are either ratifying something that existed before, that you were really a Jew anyway and you just lost track, or alternatively that by participating in a kosher conversion, you have this extra level to your soul imparted to you. And then, you should know there are some very tough sayings about this, and this is, a lot of rabbis don't want to convert non-Jews because the responsibilities are awesome. A kind Orthodox rabbi is going to say to an eager young girl who wants to convert, or an eager young man who wants to convert, what are you doing? You can live like a good Gentile, free of the burning bush. You can have a good life. Earn money, go to school, have your children, take them to football, all have Friday night dancing, all the things that people are quite permitted to do. What's the problem? You want to be a Jew, all of a sudden you've got to keep Shabbos, and you've got to keep kosher, and you've got to use the mikveh, and it goes on and on for 613 verses. What do you want that for? And if the person can't really sign up for that, the rabbis don't want to convert them because they're just going to have pain. They're going to have a bad life, not a good life, not a better life, a worse life. So the first thing with the cave shows that her influence on Avram Avinu was total and permanent forever. The second thing with Eliezer not bringing Rivka to marry Yitzhak and not being successful with his own beautiful daughter ends with Yitzhak bringing her to his tent and being a substitute for the mother. So on one perspective, that she's a substitute for the mother means the mother's dead. But on the other perspective, it is that there is a continuation. Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael does continue. The snare is not consumed. We may have pain if we don't want to listen to this, and you don't want to live like this, because we make dumb choices. We sell, when the Europeans came to America, they bought, everybody knows, they bought New York for a string of beads, right? These Red Indians had never seen beads, or 10 pairs of beads, or whatever it was. And that's what Jews do. They sell out their land for beads. We have a precious, fantastic opportunity. And to squander that on being living with a pony if you're a donkey, or living with a donkey if you're a pony, is dumb. It doesn't work. And if you need proof for that, go and have a look. Have a look at all the Jews that you know and see the ones that have dedicated their lives to running after the things that society holds as valuable, and see how much nakas they get from it. So that's the second thing, that when she says that the miracles subsisted and she finds a replacement for her mother, it's not just that the mother has died and Yitzhak has moved on. It's that she's died, but her influence continues unabated. And that's the key to this. And then finally, when Avram Avinu remarries Hagar and has another 6 children, and the fact that he carefully keeps Yitzhak separate from those children, and Yishmael, even though Yishmael's done tshuva, and they become great friends, which, by the way, they became. Yitzhak and Yishmael became very great friends. But with this understanding that they have different roles in life, different purposes in life and different roles in life. So what's the bottom line, asks the Rebbe, in all these sikkas? It always comes back to this. It says, what's the lesson in avoida? What's the lesson in your and my life on a daily basis? You have to retool, answers the Rebbe, you have to retool your focus. Obviously, we live with a nefesh habahamis and a nefesh elokis. We live with an animal soul and a godly soul. And the animal soul functions a lot of our conscious time. And we need it. If there's a dog, a mad dog, rabid dog, running up the road and is going to savage you, you're a fool if you don't try and get cover. Why? Because your animal soul alerts you to the fact that you're in danger and you need to do something. You don't stand there and say, I'm a Jew and I'm going to learn Torah and do mitzvahs, and therefore I'll have a different pathway in life, and that different pathway in life will protect me from this dog. Then you deserve to be bitten. That's the bottom line. But so there are parts of the day and parts of one's life that one has to obey your nefesh abamis and subscribe to it. You got to go to work. You got to pay your bills. You got to put out the garbage. Got to whatever it is that you do. But the question is, where is your mind? Where is your focus? Is your focus on being like everybody else in the street who's putting out his garbage? Or do you understand that you are a Jew, a member of Am Yisrael Chai, a person whose job it is to bring Ruchnius into Gashmius and elevate Gashmius into Ruchnius, and even while you're putting out the garbage, your focus is on what your life purpose is, you're going to have a different life. An entirely different life. Anxiety-free, fear-free. So the only question is, can we do it? So Ronin, what was the
No, I just didn't understand the
maths?
timing. So
What was the
when
maths?